I'm going to talk about these towel bars. I think I'm the last person on the planet that knows how to install them, so I'll share my information. This is the type. This is a different color, obviously, but anyway, it's a type you cement into the wall, and it has a plastic rod or an acrylic rod that goes in that hole. And okay, so let me go through the steps with you. First, what you need to do is really carefully measure the distance between these two things with the rod in place. And it's very important to get that exactly right. It can be a little bit too far out this way. The rod can be just a little bit loose. I put it in a little bit too tight, and I had to shave the end at the last minute as everything's starting to dry and set, whatever. So anyway, yeah, you want to get that exactly cut. You use your angle grinder and a cement bit. Needless to say, this is the type that goes into a concrete wall, go into tile. I've seen people try to put it many years ago. I saw somebody try to put it into sheetrock, gypsum, dry board, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't work. My guess is it would probably work with that cement board, but I haven't tried it. This is a brick wall. It's a brick wall and with tile on it, obviously. And so what you do is you take and measure again, and then you take your ceramic cutter and you cut out the dimensions using this right in here, the inside dimension here, and you dig it out to that depth, but about a little bit more. So a quarter of an inch, several millimeters, that's it, all the way around, because you're going to put grout in there. And yes, it's correct, it's grout. It took me a very long time to find out what you use to hold this thing in. I was going to use cement. Some people said epoxy. Those things are both wrong. It is grout, and that's it. Those holes are supposed to be there. So what you do is you cut it out, you dig your hole in, and then you set it in place. Make sure it's a perfect fit in that hole. It's not, there's nothing sticking up, because you really got one shot at this. Then you set your grout in there, smooth it in, work it in really well so it's nice and flush. And let me also add in here that they came out with a whole line of these things. Like, this is a toilet paper holder. They had clothing hooks. They had all sorts of things, and they all mount the same way. You cut the hole and dig it out so it's about a centimeter or so, several millimeters deeper than the back part, and use grout. Again, it's grout to set it in the wall like this. But yeah, all these things mount are the same. Set your first end. I set this one first over here. I used an old shower curtain rod from this wall over here to here to hold this thing in while I was working on it. So I got a shower rod over here. I'm ducking underneath. So I set my rod in there. This is all measured out. Everything's cut, ready to go. Apply my grout inside the hole. Work everything in there. Work it till it's in there really well. Make sure that you have the rod in place when you put this thing in here, because you do not want to redo this. Removing one of these things is not fun. Once it is set, it is really in there. So anyway, make sure you have your brand label wherever you're going to have it, but get the rod in there, get this thing set, work it in there. Again, I used a shower curtain or spring-loaded shower curtain rod from over there, back over here to hold it in place, and then I let it sit for 24 hours until it was firm. While I was working, by the way, I had on the floor, I had very thick blankets and whatever in case I drop one of these, because it hits that tile floor and it's all over. All the hole cutting and everything is done. So anyway, mount that. Everything's mounted in place. It's held by the shower curtains, shower curtain rods, and then I let it sit for, how long did I let it sit for? 24 hours before I removed the shower curtain rods. After that, I applied tape over them. just packing tape over them to make sure they didn't like come loose, or if they were going to come loose, they're not going to fall on the ground. And then I literally let them sit for a week, and the guy who told me about this, he was an old-timer. The guy who told me about it said you let it sit for 2 weeks. Anyway, I let it sit for a week, and then I, with the tape still on it, struck it to see if it's going to come off like that, and both sides. And that was it. Pronounced it good and started using it. So they're very strong. They last forever. This one over here has been here for, I don't know how many years, 20 years, 25 years, something like that. So when they're installed properly, they work well. And as you can see, other than some dust, about the same type of job. So anyway, for the 1 or 2 people on the planet who are going to need to know that, I hope you find it useful and interesting.